A second.
Commissioner Abernathy,
Yes.
Commissioner Anning, Commissioner Argento is out, Commissioner Emmerich Ford,
I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Lurvy is also absent, Commissioner Matthews,
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy,
Yes.
Commissioner Verrett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Serrano,
Yes.
Chair Ibanez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Frankie. And just to clarify, there are no public comments on this item.
There are no public comments.
Thank you. We will now proceed to staff administrative updates.
Thank you, Chair. I only have a few things for you guys today. So Commissioner Argento was reappointed on June 5th, and Commissioner Matthews was also reappointed on June 12th. Both terms for both of them are from July 1st to June 30th, 2026. And another thing that I want to bring to the Commission's attention is the NACO conference that's coming up. It's coming up on November 12th, and it'll be from the 12th through the 16th in Chicago, Illinois. So we usually have 2 commissioners go every year. So if you are interested in going, please let myself and the chair know, and we'll see what we can do. So definitely do that as soon as possible.
Can you say the dates again?
It's from November 12th through the 16th. And if there's no further questions, that's all I have for you guys today.
Thank you, Frankie. Do we have any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the IPA informational report and status update. And I'll pass it over to Dr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Chair Ibanez. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Excellent. So we should get the PowerPoint presentation up momentarily. And Frankie, when we do that, we can just skip right from the title page to the second slide.
Let me double check.
There we go. So as I do each month, I like to report on the activities of the IPA. And I'm going to start off by the work that I've been doing over the last month in June. As we know, one of the key factors of the OIR report, and in fact the IPA report, was the need to follow up on recommendations made to the PPD. So we had the report that I issued on the assessment of investigations of categorical use of force in May, the OIR report on the shooting of Mr. McLean in April. There was also an OIR report in August of 2014 relating to a shooting involving Mr. McDade, and also another shooting with Mr. Barnes in October of 2009. So there are those 4 reports that need recommendations followed up on. In addition, there were National Police Foundation reports, one relating to an in-custody death of Mr. Thomas in February 2019, and a use of force policy review in July of 2020. So what I'm doing right now is I'm working on a draft recommendation tracker with the department to include all OIR, National Police Foundation, IPA, and CPOC recommendations, and then to actually report on the status of all of those. So I've been making good progress. I'm going to wait and see tonight if the CPOC is creating a work group to assist further in working in this, in which case then we'll incorporate the CPOC work group into the collaborative work between myself and the department. And my goal is by the end of the year to have a working recommendation tracker that is up on both the CPOC and police department websites and available for the public to monitor, that is updated on a monthly basis. In addition, I'm also following up on the timing of administrative investigations of critical incidents. As we know, that was a major issue with certainly the McLean shooting, where it took the DA quite a while before he issued a shoot letter, and the administrative review and investigation of the incident was delayed. We have recently had a DA letter on the shooting of Mr. Daniel Warren in May of 2019. And it took 4 years and a couple of days for the DA to issue the letter. The good news, at least, is the administrative investigation and administrative review of that shooting will now be able to proceed. There are 3 other shootings, however, that are also pending. One occurred in May of 2020, one in November of 2021, and another July of 2022, all fatal shootings. And I have making inquiries with the chief about the status of those. The department has already said that they will proceed on those on a case-by-case basis. So I want to work with the chief to find out what exactly his objective criteria are for either proceeding with administrative review or not, and then applying those criteria to those 3 cases in order to ensure that as many cases proceed in a timely fashion as possible. Although they're clearly not timely as of now, but once we catch up, hopefully it will get better. The next issue I have is I've been working already on the drafting of the methodology for a CPOC review of pretext stop policies and practices. This is pursuant to the OIR report recommendation. And basically my hope is to have that a draft available for review by the CPOC work group, assuming the CPOC creates a work group to, in fact, work on the pretext stop policy. So I'm trying to get ahead of ahead on there so that I have something of substance I can provide to any work group to work on. Next slide. I did also want to just talk about process as far as it relates to sort of the context of a recent civil filing, which received a fair amount of publicity that alleged unnecessary force, discourtesy, and retaliation against a police officer. The incident occurred February 20th of 2023, and the civil suit was filed June 9th of 2023, which is actually very quick for a civil suit. Usually we don't see these filed for a year or 2 after the event. The police department did release the body-worn camera footage on June 12th of 2023, I think in answer to both media reports and community concerns relating to the allegations. The process that I wanted to share with everyone is that this will be part of my ongoing review of professional standards investigations, which also involves review of civil complaints alleging misconduct and how they're handled by the department, as well as disciplinary hearings. So all of the allegations that are raised, the Department for Civil Suits does document what actions they take. They can either open an investigation or they can decline to open an investigation if they don't believe that there's significant allegations of misconduct. And it's my job then to review the department's handling of these allegations, any follow-up investigation, and then certainly any professional standards investigations and disciplinary hearings on any involved officers. And it's my job to review those, and then all that information would be included in my ultimate report on the handling of professional standards investigations. I do anticipate a report again early next year, and the nature of the report will be very similar. The methodology and I think the content, the way it's presented at least, will be similar to the use of force investigation assessment. And if we could get to the next slide. I do have a July site visit coming up, which I've been planning for. I am planning to monitor defensive tactics training 2 separate sessions on 2 separate days. I'm also intending to attend 2 different shifts ride-alongs to get a greater familiarity, not only of the city of Pasadena, but the officers who are working there, and how they work and how they how they perceive the work that they need to do. I will be meeting with the chief and other city stakeholders during this site visit. And last slide. The next step, so for the upcoming month and months, as I mentioned, I've got the continued review of police department internal affairs cases closed from 2021 through 2023 in support of a public report similar to the use of force investigation assessment. I'm also continuing to monitor use of force board review boards and disciplinary boards as they occur. The department has been excellent as far as giving me notice of each of these board meetings, and then I'm able to attend them virtually. I do not comment on them, but I do monitor them, and then that information that I receive from monitoring those boards I can use in my assessment of internal affairs cases and how they're handled, as well as how use of force investigations and reviews are conducted. Also, I've got continued work on the creation of the recommendation tracking system that I mentioned previously, creation of a methodology for review of the police department early warning system. This is something I've mentioned before, but the early warning system assists department supervisors in identifying both good and problematic conduct on the part of officers in an early stage. So my intent is to do an assessment of that. I'm intending to use some expert consultants' assistance in it. So I should be able to work on that at the same time that I'm working on the internal affairs cases. And finally, as I mentioned before, my plan is to assist the CPOC work groups. Work group is appropriate in general and including the pretext stop review work group, assuming again that that is a work group that the CPOC decides to initiate this year. And with that, we can go, I think the last slide is just the question slide. So I think we can take that on the PowerPoint, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Richard. We'll start with Commissioner Jones.
Thank you so much for your update. You mentioned the DA letter for the Daniel Warren incident was received. When was that?
That was actually issued by the DA's office on May 25th.
Okay.
And that's on their public website. So all you have to do is Google Los Angeles District Attorney's Office shooting letters.
Okay.
And it will show up right there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Anthony?
Honorable Chair, just to let you know, we don't have any speaker cards for this item, but we did get a request to speak on the Zoom.
Okay. Yeah, let's proceed with that public comment.
Adriana, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I just wanted to say that, first the question, when you said the dashboard for recommendations will be up by the end of this year, is that correct? Or are you talking about next fiscal year? And then I also would like to urge the committee to take up pretext stops and again, like with urgency, as the 3rd year anniversary of when Anthony McLean was killed is approaching this August, and with increasing temperatures, we know that a lot of the Black and Brown community in Pasadena is going to be outside hanging out at parks that are heavily surveilled and targeted by Pasadena police. And this could increase pretext stops in the community. So just to kind of have an awareness that, we might be seeing an increase of pretext stops. And also, it might also, in light of that, be an ideal time to engage with community about these stops and, to start doing some of that community outreach that OIR group has recommended this committee to lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bautista.
And Chair Ibanez, if I, with your permission, I'll just answer the one question that was asked.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my intent is to have a dashboard ready by the end of this year. At the same time, I really, as I heard it repeated back to me, I don't want to overpromise. There may be some technical IT issues that I have to address, but that is my desire is by the end of the year that we'll have some kind of recommendation tracker dashboard available for the public to use.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Ms. Bautista. I see we have another hand raised.
Yes, I believe this is another public comment from Association of, oh, there it goes. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes to speak, but I would love to remind the public to please fill out the public speaker cards when you want to comment on an item in the agenda. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. My name is James Maddox. I am with the Association of Black Social Workers and had not planned on making a comment, but my question is, do we have any data on the number of pretextual stops that have been made over the last couple of years? Just saw, what's the data on it? That was all. Thank you.
And Chair Ibanez, if you want, I can probably address that.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Go ahead.
Yeah, so really that's part of the methodology. And that's what we have to develop is we have to collect, we have to find out exactly what data is out there, how reliable it is. And so what we're really trying to do is take a step back to figure out the OPI or the OIR is recommended, take a good look at the pretext policy, have some community conversations. And so my recommendation to CPOC is let's develop a very thorough methodology by which we collect all the information. And then any recommendations made by the CPOC will have a lot of value when they go forward to the department. I know that's not quite an answer to the question, but the answer is we need to check into that and figure out exactly what data exists and how accurate it is.
Thank you, Richard. Do we have any more public comments on this item?
There are no further public comments.
Yeah, Vice Chair Serrano.
Dr. Rosenthal, in terms of your next steps, reviewing internal affairs cases closed from 2021 to 2023, will you remind me the dates exactly? I want to know in terms of 2023, what is the final date that you're looking at in particular?
So it's still a little open. My initial thought was I wanted to give the department enough time to incorporate some informal recommendations I'd made to them for improvements in processes. So my plan right now is through the end of the year. And then what we would do is we'd see a report coming out, actually probably a similar time next year as the use of force report came out last year.
Thank you.
Commissioner Abernathy.
Thank you, Chair Ibanez. Dr. Rosenthal, thank you for your update. A question about the report and then another question. I do appreciate that you will be providing this an approach in terms of methodology for the pretext stops. Now, I know, as you said, we've got to find out what information to focus on and what will be useful. But roughly, do you have a time frame for that? A rough time frame?
So a lot of it really depends on the CPOC. My hope is, I think a new work group should be in place by the August meeting. Okay. And then at that point, what I'm hoping is to have a draft methodology for the subcommittee at that point.
Right.
That they can work with. And then hopefully, my general hope is within, 48 weeks, we'd be able to have a finalized methodology. And during that time, I might also be collecting data. I'm going to be trying to do the work as we go.
Yes.
But that's sort of the best I can come up with as far as where we're going to go, because a lot of it's going to be, I mean, I'm sure we're going to want to do public forums.
Yes.
And the question will be, when will they be? Where will they be? How much time will they take?
Mhm.
So does that answer your question?
Absolutely, because to have some of that information within a month, that's wonderful to inform our work. And then it's ongoing. I get that. Thank you. I also appreciated your presentation and Chair Banez at City Council. Can I just ask I just want your comments just related to that. Any thoughts about that? Yeah, or from you, or yeah, either. That's right.
What in particular?
Just general impressions, feedback. Yeah, just.
Well, I think it's a good step forward that the council invited to share information on his work. I think it could have came sooner, in my opinion. But I think it's a good step forward in terms of being on the same page as far as city council's role in regards to working with us, public safety's role in regards to working with us. There's been a lot of questions from the public in regards to what that collaborative process looks like, if there is any at all. And I think it was a very good first step in regards to clearly and specifically outlining to the council what Richard's work is outlined as, and what he plans to do in this next fiscal year, as well as what our goals are as a commission, because we do work independently, and it's also important for the council to know what our goals are, and what the community is asking for on our and us speaking on their behalf. I think, you know, it was a very quick item. It was the last item. I think it lasted about 15 minutes. There wasn't much length to it at all. There weren't any questions from the council, so I can't really speak on their behalf of how it went. But I think it was a good first step. I'm glad it happened.
Yes. And I felt that Dr. Rosenthal and you, Chair Banez, represented us well, and that collaboration. I really did appreciate that. I would have liked, though, to have some, interact. Yes, it was the end of the meeting, but hear more from City Council in response.
Sure. And that's where I have to commend Richard for that, because the commission didn't receive a formal invitation from council. It was really just Dr. Rosenthal, and he was very he was an advocate for having the commission's voice there. So I have to give credit to Richard for that, and also for the council for allowing me to come in there and speak as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chair, let me just say also, I really did appreciate council giving me an opportunity to be heard, or us an opportunity to be heard. And I would hope that it would occur at least on an annual basis, and then on other occasions as necessary. Certainly upon any recommendations on pretext stop policy, perhaps, presenting findings in that regard. I'd certainly like to see something like that going into the future.
Us as well. Thank you, Richard. Okay, if there are no further comments, we will now proceed to our next item, which is a discussion and consideration of the potential recommendation to the City Council to extend the contract of the independent police auditor, Richard Rosenthal. So,
and Chair, I'm going to go on mute and off camera.
Sure.
But be available for any questions. Obviously, I'll be watching the meeting as we go on.
Sure. Thank you. And city staff, feel free to chime in to give further clarity. But the understanding for this item is to really just discuss the overall work that Dr. Rosenthal has done in collaboration with us this past fiscal year, and to just get feedback from our body to see how satisfied we are with it, and just any general thoughts on how we feel the work has been going so far with Richard. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I have a concern that the dollar figure is in here and that what we're approving is really him to continue versus compensation. His compensation is I think outside of our scope, and that's a direct relationship employee based on criteria and fair market value, and I don't think we have enough ability to weigh in on that. So my only concern is that it appears as written that it's a dual approval. So if it's just a matter of approving his performance, I think I'm comfortable with that. But as worded, it seems to imply is because it's mentioned. And I'm not
Right.
sure if Anthony has read this and what you're feeling about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Verrett. I'll actually pass it over to Anthony to clarify.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. It's an outstanding question. I will say that when I had the meeting that we typically have to prepare the agenda with the chair and vice chair, this is something that we discussed because it is a complicated issue. I'm the one who wrote this agenda item. I tried to do it very carefully because, you know, my background representing cities, you have sort of a dual issue, just like you said. You have a procurement issue, which is the dollars amounts that are often approved by finance directors and then go through an approval process through the city manager to the city council. This item is not intended to get into that. And I did check with the city attorney's office as well to make sure it fit their comfort level. Really what this is more almost like a performance review. It's to focus more on just your general satisfaction with Dr. Rosenthal. You could provide any constructive feedback that you want as well as part of your recommendation, but your recommendation would not bind or constrain the city council in any way concerning the actual dollars that he would receive for a contract extension. And I'm glad to answer any additional questions you have.
Thank you, Anthony. Go ahead, Commissioner Naomi.
So given that, I would just say that the ad hoc committee that I was on, which was the use of force, found him to be extremely available, very comprehensive in his questions and follow up on any questions that the 3 ad hoc committee members had. And I felt like we made a lot of progress in moving towards this review and assessment of the OIR report that he submitted to the committee. So I think he's been above and beyond helpful in responding to any questions that we had. So I would say if it were on a scale of 1 to 5, I would give him a 5, being the highest.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, Commissioner Verrett.
I agree with that. I think the key for me is the collaboration that he exhibits. He obviously is well versed and educated on a number of situations across a long period of time, has a lot of expertise. However, when questioned or ideas that come up, he doesn't behave in an authoritative manner. And he is a very much of a patient kind of both educator, collaborator, which I think is ideal for this committee. And he's very responsive to our needs. So I agree that if we are going on a 1 to 5, then I would go with the 5 as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones?
4.5 because he's in Canada. He can't have dinner with us. No, but in all honesty, he's definitely been quite helpful in answering the questions we have and going to who needs to be knocked on their door to find the answers for us if he doesn't have them, and even gone above and beyond to find other folks that he knows within the industry to provide feedback so we can get a big picture because we're all new here. So super appreciative, and I would go on. I'm gonna keep it at a 4.5 because he's in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, Commissioner Abernathy.
Thank you, Chair Banez. I too have appreciated his knowledge and expertise and networking. Particularly, I think it's been really evident the strength of his relationship with the police department. His experience related to that really shows, so the wisdom that he's giving us. I have said on several occasions I would want him working with us more collaboratively. And I think what's important that I have been a little disappointed in, but what's been most important, he's responded well to that. And the most recent city council meeting is an example of that. The sense of it being we, us together. And also at one point asking for these more written reports because we were getting verbal reports without PowerPoint. And again, everything, any feedback that we've given, he's immediately responded. And I think that's important. So I feel related to that, it's important. I'm not going to give a rating, but it's a collaborative. Part of it being collaborative is we each help one another be better. If we don't give the feedback, we actually don't all perform as well as we might. So I see us being partners in that process too.
Thank you. I will say for myself, me and Juliana see him every other week or talk to him every other week. And I can echo a lot of what the commission is saying. One of the things that I appreciate about Richard the most is that he approaches this with a long game in mind. He thinks about what this commission will look like 2 to 5 to 10 years from now. And it looks like he's building to create foundations so that it can be self-sustaining and be another system of checks and balances for the employees of our city. And I really like, I mean, his experience, it just shows in terms of the people that he knows and the people that he's been able to bring in to speak to us. But just how he approaches the strategy that he has in approaching the work and his willingness to want to talk to our community members and hear more from our community members. That's definitely something that I'm looking forward to working on and enhancing this next fiscal year, because there's a lot of community members that want to get in touch with him, and he is willing to do that as well. But there's no bridge there. But the fact that he's willing to do that is really good in my eyes. And I think he's done a really great job in building on the foundation that Brian Maxey left when he left us. I think when we were looking for Maxey's replacement, it was a really stressful time. The people that were in that group that and leading up to those selections, it was a very stressful time on finding someone who would be appropriate for our city and for our people to do the work that needs to be done. But I think so far Richard has done a great job. So yeah, I'm in full support of continuing to work with him.
Honorable Chair, I did want to mention we don't have any speaker cards for anybody here in the council chambers, but we did have a request to speak on the Zoom.
Oh, yes. Yes, let's proceed.
Ms. Batista, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I want to thank Mr. Rosenthal for his work. I also find that now that the meetings are back in person, the technical frustrations sometimes, with the distance and the remote, and I think that is going to impact, especially as the committee starts doing more community-based outreach. I do see that sort of impacting in a way the quality of the work. I think it would be more effective if there was IPA who was local or at least able to attend locally community meetings and get to know the community better and be available in a way for community. And I also, I kind of resent the fact that the Pasadena Officers Association butted in and when OIR group was selected by the city, especially having, read their independent review of Edwin Dumagwendon's murder of Anthony McLean. I felt that their independent review was extremely thorough, as they have been in the past. And it seems like even their attendance to different city council meetings have been impactful. And the fact that they've been able to kind of create that that rapport with Pasadena police in order to get information and different, you know, I'm sure Mr. Rosenthal has too, and I'm appreciative of that. But just seeing how OIR group works and being able to assess their report, I resent the fact that PPD interfered with that initial selection of an IPA and has sort of thrown us into collaborations with IPAs who are not even present in California. It does feel like a very intentional wrench in what is supposed to be a very community-minded local oversight committee. So I just want to urge the commissioners, while I know it's probably important to, you know, continue this line of work that's been started, to also, you know, kind of reflect as well, like in the future, like what do you want this relationship to look like?
Ms.
And
Bautista, your time is up. If you could please wrap up your comments.
the fact that it's remote, I think it does make a big impact in a negative way that could be improved upon if we worked with somebody who is more local. Thank you.
There are no further public comments.
Thank you, Frankie. Thank you, Ms. Bautista. Vice Chair Serrano.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo a lot of the words that have already been expressed by fellow commissioners, but from the perspective of as Vice Chair of this commission and working very closely with you, Chair, and Frankie and Anthony, that it has been a pleasure to work with Dr. Rosenthal. There is no doubt that he is one of the leading police auditors in the nation and that we are benefiting from his expertise, that in the context of these meetings that we have in preparation for these commission meetings, he is truly a thought partner with us, for which I'm really grateful. You know, exemplifying that collaborative spirit, even in the topics that we're approaching and how we're trying to structure a really good, productive meeting. So I couldn't speak highly enough of him and what he's doing for us in the very short period of time that he's been with us, and want to commend him and us in this moment for the momentum that I do think that we are garnering at this point in time. You know, Chair, you mentioned that certainly Dr. Rosenthal understands the nature of building up the scope of work, and I feel like we have set a solid foundation this fiscal year, and I really look forward to a continued collaboration and partnership with Dr. Rosenthal to see what else we can do for the improvement of police community relations in Pasadena.
Thank you. Commissioner Anang.
Well, okay. Yeah, it's I have to go back to the beginnings because most of the time, as Chair said, that when we lost Mr. Maxey, you know, there was many conversations with Mr. Maxey to say, you know, who should be, who are the like top three that we should have to be here and to help us through and to have a long range vision. And the only name that was coming up from him was Mr. Rosenthal and connecting a few of us together. So I'm really glad that it is. I have heard the community in that it needs to be somebody here, but then, you know, I have pushed back to say that I feel it's very much like a professor thing with Mr. Rosenthal and us, is that as we're trying to build and learn and pass the baton on to the next people that will sit in these seats from our community and have a really good foundation, he comes with the expertise of like a professor, that he doesn't have to hold our hand, but challenge us and move us in ways to help us to grow.
Recording in progress.
Okay. And as Dr. Abernathy said, you know, it also takes time to move in that collaboration because he has a lot of expertise. He has a lot of things that he would like to leave in Pasadena that he doesn't want to force down our throats, but he wants us to seed it very slowly. And we also have to learn to challenge him to understand Pasadena. I think that's really the challenge for this year, is for us to challenge Mr. Rosenthal about Pasadena with his expertise, and how can we weave his expertise and Pasadena's unique spaces and places and cultures and people, that we can really get a heartbeat going for all the different levels. And I think as far as where he is, I feel he'll be a very professorish like, and we have to be the hard-headed students that really get on his nerves to what we want for each of our districts and each of our places, in Pasadena as one. But I think that you know, he's doing what he's doing what's needed to be done in this season, and we at the Diocese still have a lot to learn, and we just got to figure this thing out.
Thank you. Another thing I'd like to point out, as I was reading the agenda, it doesn't feel like it's only been a year working with Dr. Rosenthal, even though it has. Right. It feels like it's been at least double that, if not more. Yeah, it was. I was looking at the contract proposal, and I was like, how has it only been 1 year? But that's just a testament to all of the work that's been done and everything that we've gone through together so far. And it gives me optimism for the continuation of his contract and the work that we're going to do next year.
Chair, I'm happy to make a motion for recommendation of approval. Is that right? This is an action item.
That's correct. It's an action item, so you certainly, the agenda item is written, so you have the choice to make a motion for this recommendation. We're just double checking that there's no additional public speakers on Zoom. I'm not aware of any. Is there anybody else? No other speakers. So at this time, yes, if you'd like to make a motion, please feel free to do so.
I'd welcome that. Thank you.
I'd second.
Okay.
As I understood it, the motion was you moved to approve the recommendation, and then we had a second.
Commissioner Abernathy?
Yes.
Commissioner Anning? Commissioner Emmerich Ford?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Matthews?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Verrett?
Yes.
Vice Chair Serrano?
Yes.
Chair Ibanez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Frankie. We will now proceed to our next item, which is a review and approval of Commission Report of Accomplishments for the fiscal year of 2022-2023. Before we proceed in any action items, do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
Yes, we do. Ms. Bautista, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, yeah, I don't really feel like I can comment on this until like the item's discussed, because there's no information in the agenda that I can see.
Ms. Bautista, if you scroll all the way down, you'll be able to see a header page for agenda item number 8, which says review and approval of commission report of accomplishments for the fiscal year 22-23. And from there, you'll be able to see an outline of our general objectives, as well as each subcommittee work group ad hoc, their membership and the work that was outlined by month. So it's all part of the same document. You just got to scroll down a little bit.
Okay, I see it now. Yeah, I feel like it would be awesome if the ad hoc could like present in a similar way that the IPA presents, just like a brief, update of since those meetings weren't really made public. I know it's sort of been discussed in previous ones, but yeah, I think in terms of I see review findings from the Anthony McLean admin review and independent report, and I feel like this committee still hasn't really done that to the extent that the city has been demanding. So I don't really see that as something that can necessarily be listed as an accomplishment so far, because it hasn't really been done. But that's something that I'm highly anticipating, and I really hope that this committee addresses that as part of your work plan more thoroughly. And as Dr. Rosenthal said, in order for him to be able to make a dashboard of recommendations, there really needs to be a work group or some action made. And I say, like, it doesn't really matter if you do it perfectly, just go for it, just start it, because this is really, something that everybody in Pasadena has been crying out for, and it has been addressed to you all by city council. So I really feel like that's the most important thing. It just, and I really hope that there's a concrete schedule or work group, something made by the end of this meeting, because, like, this committee was not just made just to approve lists and such. So we really want to see community meetings happening and being scheduled again, like by the end of the summer, by the end of this year, like have some concrete ways that those recommendations, those 20-something recommendations were made a few months ago. And I don't really see this committee acting quite as swiftly as I had hoped. So I just want to leave you all with that.
Thank you, Ms. Bautista. There are no further public comments.
Commissioner Emmerich Ford.
It just to respond to the comment and having the commissioners, in terms of our ad hoc committees, some of the things that were done in the ad hoc committees to kind of verbally express what was done. So in our ad hoc committee, which consisted of myself, Commissioner Emmerich Ford, Commissioner Matthews, and Commissioner Argento, we did work with IPA Rosenthal on 2 specific action items. This was under the use of force. And so 2 of the things that we specifically looked at was pointing of a firearm at individuals, and then the second was shooting from or at or from a moving vehicle, at or from a moving vehicle. And so on the first one, in terms of pointing of a firearm, we sent a formal letter to Chief Harris. He accepted that letter, attended the meeting, have a discussion, and said that they would consider our recommendations. We did quite a bit of extensive research, working with both Amanda and with Frankie, the city employees, to review other cities and what their policies looked like, and considered cities that looked very similar to Pasadena, and providing this research on to PPD. In terms of shooting at or from a moving vehicle, they've accepted some of the research that we've provided, and they're going to go back and consider that. We don't have a specific on what the follow-up will be, but they're considering some of the recommendations that we made. So I feel like, at least from our ad hoc committee, there were some specific things that we looked at. We did meet monthly and had very in-depth discussions with IPA Rosenthal. And I felt at each one of those meetings, obviously each of the commissioners come with different viewpoints, and he was very good at hearing each of those viewpoints and what we consider to be a priority, and would consider all of those and provide feedback to us. So I felt like we did make pretty significant progress.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Anang?
Okay, I think Commissioner Abernathy is probably right. The one common denominator was in your group, you didn't have the police, you just had you guys and Mr. Rosenthal. I struggled this year. I struggled so hard this year because even though the accomplishments looks like, I would say in our ones, that it looks like we did something, I feel for myself, we did not. Like we touched the surface. And I think because our ones had to have the police in our meetings to move it further, to get the information or to have there was always seemed to be a setback, or there was months missing. And so I feel for me, even and the other commissioners on the ad hoc can speak for it. It's just it was just frustrating. That was the point, because the next step always either needed the police to come back or to have something, and either that police officer wasn't around or that police officer was on leave, or it was moved to another police officer. And I found out this year that I more allowed it to be in the space of being told what to do. That's kind of how I allowed it, because in the first year, we led it very strong. But in this year, I was like, okay, let us see what it looks like to be led, and just follow through, even trying to collaborate. But it moving forward in the ad hocs, we have to, in the ad hoc committees, we have to more take the lead and be more vigorous if the police are in the collaboration, and I say that strongly. If they're in the collaboration in the ad hoc committees that I want to be in, going to have to take that lead and to challenge them a little bit harder and stronger, because at the end of the day, what we did it was good, but it didn't touch the surface to just close out and say, okay, this is done, and we moved on. I could turn around and show somebody in the community and say, this was our ad hoc. And they were like, well, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, so what's the result? What's the outcome? What did you as the committee then say? What were the recommendations, or how did you challenge them? We never really got that far because we were still learning. And so we got to the end of the year and there's still this big gap. So that's just my thoughts moving on for the next year.
Thank you. Commissioner Abernathy?
Thank you, Chair Banez. As we look at, what the ad hoc groups did, I do appreciate Commissioner Ford, the work and the specifics that came from that. And yes, we can look too at our the work in critical ways in terms of what we could have done more. I know we've already passed the minutes from the May 18 meeting, but I wonder, because part of what's being asked about is the link from the OIR to what we did. I wonder whether we should have some supplemental material, because if we look at the record of that meeting, we all made connections between OIR report and what it meant for the work group. So for instance, our group was focused on the use of force and the officer involved shootings. Well, we went through line by line. Remember earlier, every recommendation, and we had that categorized. So when the OIR report says certain recommendations were not acted on. We had already reviewed that even in the first year with Maxie, exactly. So we knew that, and that is part of why we pressed for, okay, we need to move forward. Dr. Rosenthal had this idea of the tracking system, but we knew something was broken in that way. And that's an example where we build on past work. Then we prioritize. We had already been talking about these pretext stops, right? That was being pressed already, but now with the OIR report, that was even more important. But see, when I look at these minutes, which are perfectly wonderfully recorded and appropriately to how we would expect, unfortunately, it does not reflect our important summaries and our reflections. So I just wonder, again, it may not be minutes, but the beautiful thing is that things are recorded. And I think I want to see that, right? Because yes, I can play the tape back, but I think the community also needs to see that. And there are connections here that the written record doesn't necessarily show us. So I wonder about that. Is there a way of capturing that more fully?
Thank you.
Honorable
Anthony?
Chair,
Yeah.
if you'd like, I can make a suggestion.
Yeah. Yes.
So the minutes, I think as you noted, they were prepared the standard way that we do minutes. And, of course, I reviewed those. Frankie's done a great job in Amanda's absence and preparing the minutes. But even though we've already approved the minutes, you have the option of requesting basically a supplemental report to be attached to the minutes, providing the detail that was just discussed, and that could be brought back at the next meeting for approval with the minutes in general for that item. So it would basically be that more robust description that you described.
Thank you, Anthony. Vice Chair Serrano?
Chair and Dr. Abernathy, I'm wondering if this is feeling like we as a body, we need our own kind of tracker, right? Like, yeah, for things, recommendations that we're making, what the status is of those who's taking the lead, that sort of thing. I'm wondering if there's something that we can replicate, that which we've asked the department to do, but also for ourselves. Maybe Frankie can help us with something like that.
Commissioner Verrett?
I think all of us are frustrated with pace in terms of progress because we're all dedicated to this cause and serious about it. This was a steep learning curve. I think maybe we might have over-anticipated how much one can do in a year. But I think if you look at the progress, I've been very impressed with it. And I think why it may not show to the public the effort and work we've done is because there's not a visual representation of the list. And I think that's why I'm echoing Commissioner Serrano's suggestion that we may look at a dashboard of our own that can track the progress. And then my second issue, I just want to talk a little bit about Objective 3. Because we reviewed the training program, myself and Commissioner Anang on that ad hoc committee, and we did review all of the training from the moment a police officer is recruited, including the training that they get as continual training. We did have 2 recommendations that are not in the minutes. One recommendation is to have a standard core training for community policing. What we discovered in looking at the training is that it's pretty much directed by the chief at the time. And the issue is there should be some core element to it that has more continuity than that. And that, yes, the chief may add different elements because of what they're seeing in the community and the needs. But when you look at how many transitions we've had over time, then the training has changed whatever time there was a change in leadership. So we're recommending that they do have a core educational training around community policing. And the second recommendation is they have enhanced emphatic communication. If you look at the way in which the police describes de-escalation, the first step in de-escalation, they say, is effective communication. it was not defined, but one gets the feeling that effective communication from a police standpoint and from a community standpoint may be two different things. I think the effectiveness they're saying is the person cooperates, but what I see lacking is any empathetic concern for the person who's trying to understand the circumstances they're in and what has happened. So one training tool that people use and can borrow from other industries, if you do role modeling of communication, to video it. So the person actually can see the video of themselves, and then you can really see what you look like to someone else. If you look at examples, for example, and I'll use my own experience, when I did my ride along, one of the questions I asked the officer is what determines who has to get out of the car? Because, you know, I have a ticket in my life, but I didn't get out of the car. The policeman didn't tell me to get out of the car. But why is it that in these incidences that we're talking about, there's always a get out of the car component to that? And what he said is that, you know, if you ask a person, let me see your driver's license, and they don't have a legitimate license, they have to ask them to exit the car in order to say that you can't continue to operate the vehicle. Now, was that communicated all the time? Probably not. But more importantly, that's something that we should, when we look at pretextual stops, get a little bit more definition around. But we do believe that enhancement of communication skills, specifically emphatic communication is important, and to have that core. And just to say is that we felt we were at the end of our ad hoc committee, because at this point, the training is so ubiquitous to everything else that we do, it doesn't make sense to have a separate ad hoc committee for it. And I guess at this point, Flo, if you want to add anything, you can. We're looking to see if the other commissioners support the fact that we should make these two recommendations going forward.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, yes, those recommendations, but sorry, thank you. But there was what I put in the email, and I said it in the Zoom, that I feel that the officer said it, that maybe a once a year curriculum could be developed in-house, because they use the officers to develop their own curriculum, and that incorporated local stakeholders in a deep level discussion that included history, cultural diversity, and changing dynamics. I feel that they use all of their officers to create their own curriculum. So no matter which thing you said, whether it was pretextual stops, okay, well, we use this officer and this is their training. Very rarely do they go outside, or they have the app trainings that they have. And they have a very small curriculum that they do, which is kind of a community based, but they're doing it. And the suggestion was it would be good to have stakeholders to come in and invest in that curriculum. That may be for new officers, mid-range officers, or whatever, but that curriculum could be a space where community stakeholders could hear things that they need to hear, and the police could hear it, but that curriculum, then they could create it in-house. So those were the three. I mean, yes, Commissioner, what she said, those two was right, but I was very much interested in the curriculum because everything could be done in-house and they could pull community people in. But like she said, I think there was levels to the training that I wanted to go, but as I said, we just didn't meet enough to get to that level. But it is really a closed book because you can't beat an old horse. Like you can close the book.
I think
just to add, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what it is, though, is that in every group, there's going to be some component to what you do that looks at the training relative to your charge of your ad hoc committee. And that's what's the real thing is. We felt that it would probably be much more meaningful to do it in the segment as related to what your ad hoc experience is. And what Flo is talking about is trying to get to a point where the police will accept as part of their curriculum and training that there could be better ways to do it and better ways to achieve the goals. I think they're committed to the goals of good policing, but also still stuck a little bit in a model that maybe could be tweaked a little bit, like the thing about videoing or having community people, if you're going to do a role model enactment, not using other police officers to do that. But it would be much more meaningful, I think, if you had a community member and they can really act it out the way it was, how they responded to. But I think what happens is that every idea can gain traction over time. But we felt at this point we had those recommendations to go forward and to make other commissioners be aware that in your next ad hoc meeting, that the training component to whatever you're doing is going to be a part of that. So we don't think the training scrutiny is over. It's just going to be in a little bit in a different form.
For me, generally speaking, half the battle is doing the work. And then the other half of the battle is breaking through the bubble of this institution and making sure the public knows what type of work is being done. And to Commissioner Verrett's point, speaking on the work that was done in the use of force ad hoc, I remember vividly that meeting where the recommendation that we gave to the department was accepted, and there was a copy given by the chief where the policy was codified. The police policy was codified and updated right then and there, and it reflected the recommendation that we gave. So that's indicative that change is possible. But how quickly that change happens, I think, is indicative of how involved the community is, and I think that's a direct reflection of the 24 work plan that we have in place, where one of our initiatives is to find ways to directly involve the community more. So I think to the general point, I think the work is being done, but if the community doesn't know that the work is being done, then that's how we get frustrated community members, and that's how we get frustrated comments like these. So again, that's something that we've identified, and that's something that we're very aware of, and it's something that we plan to work on in the next fiscal year as well. Yeah, Commissioner.
It's
no,
okay.
I mean,
Emmerich Ford. It's fine.
Sorry.
It's two last names, so Commissioner Emmerich is fine. So just two things I'd like to follow up on. So one is to Commissioner Verrett's point. I would agree, because we did look at the PPD manual, which also has training. So we did specifically look at, so I do think looking at the PPD manual, depending on what your topic is. So we were under objective 2, and there were some changes that were immediately made on the spot under use of force, and then some follow-up things that after reviewing that Amanda had found that PPD had made changes even above and beyond what they had told us they had made through some discussions. And some of that's not captured here as well. And I think my second point would be back to what Vice Chair Serrano said, having a tracker. So if you look at the way that the objectives are written, so it's talked, we're government, right? So it's written in government speak. This is a whole lot of pages. So I think a tracker would be much easier and have all of the accomplishments listed so that people can see it immediately. The community can look at it and say, okay, here's what you projected to do. Here's what's carrying over into 24. Here's what was done in 23, or things that still need to move over. So I'm just reiterating 100%. I agree with what Vice Chair Serrano said, that I think if we did that, it would help with what the public comment was. It's hard for me to see, right? I'm not sure what it is that you've done. So we can correct that and then use it moving forward as well. So I'd like for us to do both, to go back and give what was asked of us and then continue to use that moving forward.
Thank you. Anthony, go ahead.
Honorable Chair and Commissioners, I was just having a further discussion with Frankie, and the thought that we had talked about the minutes, but maybe the more effective way to do this is to take all the great feedback we've gotten on this item and make the changes that were requested, and then bring item 8 back before the commission at your next meeting in August with those updates. So you have a comprehensive and updated document that you can approve at that time. I think that'd be better than approving this accomplishments list and then having to update it perhaps in August or supplement it. We can just correct it, update it, and then you could approve it in August. So it would be to update it.
I think that's a very helpful suggestion, and I appreciate the willingness to do that in the comments that led to that. Do we need to formally vote for that to happen, or?
I think that's probably the easiest thing to do, just to make it clear in the minutes what happened with the item. So it would just be a motion to continue the item and to have the list of accomplishments updated per the discussion that we just had.
Sure. Before we do that, Commissioner Abernathy?
Yes, thank you, Chair Banez. I do appreciate that. I think there are two things that are being talked about, though. One thing is to be clear about what our accomplishments are with the additions. But when we have an OIR report that we've been waiting for forever, that's not going to actually be reflected in these updates. So we don't need to call it minutes, but the supplemental piece, which shows how we are responding, our response, that is also an important accomplishment, but wouldn't come under any of our ad hoc groups. That's why I'm saying those are two different things, but work together. So I would like to actually see both. I think we need both.
Yeah, I mean, certainly an option is a motion to continue this item and to do both, as you've said. And Frankie and I were also discussing, one of the effective ways is if you're the head of an ad hoc committee and you're like, well, here's a section that should be added for August to this list of accomplishments from my ad hoc. It is perfectly acceptable. You can take that section, draft it, and send it to Frankie as staff, and then he can take that section that you sent him, put it in the updated list of accomplishments. It's probably a very effective way to get it assembled so it moves forward quickly in August.
Thank you for that. I'm going to need help in the verbiage for this motion, because I believe that there's a motion to provide more clarity in regards to the minutes and provide a review for a 22-23 work plan as well. But I don't know exactly how to say that. I don't know if that captured everything we need to say.
I'm going to simplify it just as a suggestion to hopefully make it easy. I would just, for item 8, say a motion to continue and to direct staff to update the items that were discussed consistent with the direction of the commission.
Okay. I most sure. Yes, Commissioner McFord. Yes.
Yeah. So 3 things in that. We're continuing it for 1, to have updates from ad hoc committee members on what is not listed here. So both Commissioner Verrett and Anang mentioned 3 things that were under their objective 3 that's not listed as accomplishments. So ad hoc committee members would send to staff updates that would show the accomplishments that were done through ad hoc committees. And then to Commissioner Abernathy's point is there's work that we did as a body, like in the May meeting, that is not part of an ad hoc committee, that's not captured anywhere in here. And so we want that captured as well as part of a continuation of that. And then a third would be, as a continuation of this, is to have a visual, whatever that dashboard, or whether it's an Excel sheet, something that would gather all that, that's not written like this, that's 15 pages, but something that is a checker that says, here's what our goals were, here's what we accomplished, here's what we need to follow through in response to the community concern that we heard. So those are the 3 things, if I captured it correctly, that I would like to see added on to your continuation.
I think that's a great summary. So what I've done with this motion is I've taken care of the issue for this agenda item 8. To the second point, what will address that issue will be on the next meeting, having the supplement to the minutes that we discussed previously. That will go on. That does not involve an action on this item. That involves Frankie and I just adding that to the minutes on your next agenda. As to your third point of visual aid, I think that's a great idea. I've seen that in many different types of matters for other city clients that I've had. So that's great. That's something I'll have to work with both Frankie and Richard on, to try to deliver, work with them to deliver something that is a good visual aid that we could present. And again, kind of like the last item, that's not really part of 8. That's kind of something new. So the motion that I proposed really just deals with the item at hand, which is 8, but as staff, we will complete the other items as well.
Thank you, Anthony. So no motion is needed.
So it's just a motion to continue item
Oh,
8
got
to the August meeting and to have us proceed as directed.
Okay, I motion to continue item 8 and to instruct city staff to modify it under the direction of the commission. Okay.
Second?
Commissioner Abernathy,
The long-awaited motion, yes.
Commissioner Anning,
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerich Ford,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Matthews,
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy,
Yes.
Commissioner Verret,
Yes.
Vice Chair Serrano,
Yes.
Chair Ibanez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
It's all good because we didn't have 2 substitute motions on top of that motion, so we're good.
Yeah, that's we are approving. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So with that, we will now proceed to our next agenda item, which is the election of commission chair and vice chair for the fiscal year 23-24.
Okay, so same as last year, we're gonna go ahead and
So yeah, so I feel like I gave my farewell speech last meeting, so we don't need to do that. I feel like I've thought long and hard for myself in terms of what leadership can look like for our next upcoming fiscal year. I'll start by nominating, assuming it's accepted, Esprit Jones as our next chair for the 23-24 fiscal year.
I second.
I third.
I fourth.
I fifth.
I feel like I have to accept it now.
Before we vote, though, we do need, or have a formal motion, I'd say, to ratify that. We just need to see if there's any public comments. I don't have any cards. I don't know if there's anybody online. Nobody? Okay. So we just have, I mean, if there's discussion, that's great. But if not, we would just need a motion to formalize that.
I motion to formalize the appointment of Commissioner Esprit Jones as chair of the CPOC for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Second.
You okay? Yeah. I'm over here like, do I have to say something?
Commissioner Abernathy,
With great admiration and affirmation, yes.
Commissioner Anning,
Yes.
Commissioner Argento is not with us. Commissioner Emmerich Ford,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Matthews stepped away.
Oh.
Commissioner Stacy,
Yes.
Commissioner Verret,
Yes.
Vice Chair Serrano,
Yes.
Chair Ibanez.
Yes.
And we have Commissioner Ibanez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I am so honored. I am so honored and grateful to everyone who said yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Jones, I just want to say it has been really an honor to serve with you thus far, and I'm really excited for your leadership. I think in the last year, I have seen so much heart from you around this dais, And I think that that is going to make our commission stronger. It's going to make our IPA stronger, our relationship with city staff as we advance our work stronger, our relationship with the PPD stronger, and most importantly, our relationship with the community stronger. So I couldn't be more delighted to see you accept this nomination as our new chair. And I'm just really grateful for all of your honesty, your transparency, your leadership, your heart in this work. Thank you.
I echo the same thing, and you have to let me take a picture of you here at the end of the meeting.
Okay. You just gotta say one to Jari.
Oh, of course, of course.
And you know, there's only one thing I'm going to say, right?
She blew the whistle.
Thank you. And I believe we also have to nominate the vice chair as well.
Yes. So with that said, I think continuity is important. I think a strong transition into leadership is important. So with that said, if it is accepted, I nominate Commissioner Juliana Serrano to serve as vice chair for one more year for the 23-24 fiscal year.
I second.
She's second.
Second. No, I never say second. I never.
Commissioner Abernathy,
Yes.
Commissioner Anning,
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerich Ford,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Matthews,
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy,
Yes.
Commissioner Verrett,
Yes.
Vice Chair Serrano,
Yes. So awkward.
Chair Ibanez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all for your vote of confidence once again to serve in this position. Again, I'm going to look forward to working with you, Spree, and being maybe a little bit of that institutional and historical knowledge between the commission and your leadership and our relationship with others as we do this work. So happy to serve in this way.
Thank you, Juliana. And I just want to say thank you for all of your support for the past year. It was 2 years. It's been 2 years. I have so much trust in you and so much just admiration and comfort when you're in those spaces with me, because I mean, you know me, this is not a space that I'm used to being in. And in having you there has been everything. So I just want to say thank you. I don't have the words right now. I'll probably have them later, and I'll probably randomly let you know later. But I just want to say I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful to have worked with you these past 2 years.
And Raul, it's just been incredible. It's been really incredible. You have grown so much. You came in as an incredible leader, but what I've seen from you is you're just breaking the ceiling in the most incredible way. And I'm excited to see you show up around this dais as you said, like a regular commissioner, just a regular commissioner. But I know we expect really great feedback from you and pushback in the ways that we absolutely need to push back on our police department. And I'm just really grateful. It's been an honor to be your partner in this work.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Anong.
No, I just want to say, Raul, because it didn't really say it last month. I'm really grateful that when I first asked you on the phone that I was going to nominate you, you was like, huh? But I appreciate you just stepping up and really, taking the blows and moving us forward. But more than that, just saying yes in the beginning, because we all had to learn we didn't know what we don't know. At the end of the day, everybody's got a lot of expertise, but nobody has done this before, and especially in Pasadena.
Yeah.
So I just, yeah. You sat well. You sat well.
Thank you for trusting me. Because I know I didn't want to do it when you first proposed it. But I mean, I trust y'all so much, and you all are worth it. So after that process, I was like, okay, let's do whatever we have to do. So just thank you for trusting me. And just know the feeling is mutual, and just know that I can't do this without y'all. And yeah, I'm excited for the next year.
It was the Superman curl.
I need to cut it. Thank you, though. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Do we have any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments.
Okay, we will now proceed to our next item, which is the establishment of the work plan for the fiscal year 23-24. That is included in our agenda packet. So we do have a preliminary list of ad hoc subcommittees, work groups that can be put in play for the next fiscal year. I will very quickly run down through them so that the community is aware. So we do have a work group that is tasked to monitor and report the implementation of the OIR, the MPF, and the IPA recommendations. That basically is a system of accountability to make sure that these recommendations are implemented in a timely manner. We also have a work group that, like Dr. Rosenthal mentioned, works to develop a methodology to analyze stops in our city and to make proper recommendations to the department to include convening community members and community conversations to formally discuss and consider whether this use of pretext stops is something that we want in our city. We have another work group that will monitor the department's utilization of technology and how it will impact privacy and the overall community. We have another work group that will assess the feasibility of a community police mediation program. We have another work group that will focus on developing an informative program that emphasizes community involvement within community-based spaces and overall works to bridge the community and the department and this space. And we have another work group that is tasked to collaborate with IPA on IPA key objectives. So I will open the floor up for any public comments before we discuss.
There are no public comments.
I see we have a couple folks raised in the Yadi and the Association of Black Social Workers.
Yadi, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead. Yadi, are you there?
There we go. Thank you so much for unmuting me. So really briefly, I just wanted to say that I support the Committee on Technology Oversight and ensuring that there's adequate protection, privacy protections for the community that are being in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yadi.
I believe we also have Adriana. Adriana, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, yeah, I want to say I'm eager to see how these work groups continue, and I want to encourage the committee and the work groups to report back more frequently to the monthly commission meetings and give like regular updates. I think would be awesome as an agenda item and also like to be a little bit more transparent in like how often they meet and like that kind of thing, especially as some of the subjects are very much of public interest, such as the pretext stops, OIR's recommendations, and also the technology subject. I think that it would be, I've heard different commissioners express, interest in having more public facing in the community meetings. And I would love to see that happen, on a quarterly basis, maybe, and then have that expressed in the monthly. And then also, I just like to say, this is like the first meeting in many months where the raise hand has been an option. I've started submitting public comment cards because my hand has been ignored in many meetings for like at least I would say 4 to 6 months. So I just like some clarity if the raise hand option is going to be a consistent option. That would be great. I felt like when this commission started in terms of like public comment, that was such an awesome tool, and I love to see it being used. But at the same time, like if it's inconsistent, it's sort of like I like it's not helpful when you raise your hand and you're ignored. So I see that's not happening this meeting, but it's happened to me at least several times in recent previous meetings. So that's why I submit a public card. But sometimes you want to chime in on something that you weren't expecting to. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Our apologies for that. Usually that feature is turned off, but yes, we definitely encourage that you fill out a public speaker card online. It helps us keep track of everyone who needs to speak. So definitely we'll look to that for the next meeting to turn off that feature. Thank you. There are no further public comments.
Thank you, Frankie. So now I will open the floor up to the commission if there are any if there's any interest to serve on any of these particular ad hocs, so that we can capture that and formalize that for our next month. I can start by saying that I will be eager to join the ad hoc that works on bridging community. I believe that is ad hoc number 5. So number 5, and also in addition to that, I would also like to serve on the ad hoc that develops a methodology on pretextual stops. So that is number 2. Yes, Commissioner Anand?
Yeah, I want, what is it? 3, 5. Oh, where did I go wrong? 3, 5. That's what I'm missing, right? 3, 5, and.
So no. Oh, you one of the old ones?
Oh, no. 3, 5, and 1. Yeah, 3, 5, and 1.
Thank you. Commissioner Abernathy, then Emmerich Ford.
Yes, Chair Banyas, I want to serve on 2 pretextual stops. And are we going to say pretext stops or pretextual? Because we have it 2 different ways from our auditor and then here. So
That's a good question.
yeah. So I'll know what to call with the.
Are they interchangeable or?
They seem to be, but like it'd be good.
I can understand the point for consistency. Let us circle back with, as will end up happening is this will get updated once we have everybody's preferences and then brought back to you to be approved next meeting. So what we'll do in the meantime is check with Richard and make sure we're keeping up with the exact industry standard appropriate use of the term. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yep, so my preference would be objective 1, then objective 6, and then objective 2. Chair Ibanez or Chair Jones.
Oh, it's Chair Jones now. Yes.
I'm writing these things down. One thing I'd like to suggest for 5 is we have kind of a split in the ways that we're available and accessible and have proximity to community. I think it's important to have commissioners who may not have as much proximity to community to be in that ad hoc, to learn, to connect with people, and kind of give it like some more depth. Because if you don't live your life a certain way, or you don't have connection to it, you don't understand it. So I would like to see someone who doesn't participate as much on 5, to be honest. And I don't have no preferences yet. I'm looking through.
Commissioner Verrett, yeah.
Yes, I have an interest in 2 as well. I think that's going to be a heavily requested one. And 3, and I'm not sure if I fit number 5, but and 5.
Vice Chair Serrano.
I have interest in serving on work group 1, 5, and 6.
Nobody wants 4?
So it's 4. Commissioner Stacy.
4.
4.
And we have 2 commissioners that are not here,
That's
so we'll
true.
be sure to. Yeah.
That is true. Commissioner Matthews.
1.
So Commissioner Jones, I didn't mention objective 5, but if you're looking for various, so I think there's different, community can be defined differently, and so with different community groups. And so I think that I could also bring a different perspective from, I'm a mother, I've lived in Pasadena for a long time, from a school advocate ability working with youth. So if you're looking for other definitions of community and broadening our perspective than living in a particular community, I'm happy to do that with Group 5. And I think it's extremely important to one of the comments that Commissioner Verrett made about the training and the definition of having an empathetic concern and hearing things, what the PPD might define as having de-escalation or what is considered effective communication as opposed to community. And so I can bring that from different communities, just even in my own personal experience with that. So if you're looking for that as well, I'm happy to serve on that committee.
5 is heavy in demand. I think it's really important. And I think that it's important from us to be able to learn from each other and from folks in our surrounding direct community circles. So I'm not opposed to that. I just want to figure out how we're going to balance some of it out, because we do have just different lives and lifestyles that don't afford us the same type of access or knowledge or information. Very much living in this city. My family's been here since the 1950s. So I'm all the way a homegrown Pasadenian. And I was just sharing with someone how when you say someone lives on the east side versus they live in Northwest, you have a picture in your head automatically about someone who lives in a house versus someone who lives in an apartment. Or, you know what I mean? Like the lifestyle differences and struggles. And I've lived in a few different areas in our beautiful city as well as in Altadena. So I understand some of those differences and even those similarities. One of the biggest things that I'm interested in closing the communication gap between the department and community is for us to get to a space where we see each other as people and not where we live. And so the reason I said that is it's really a matter of getting folks who maybe are not just directly impacted by some of the things that happen in different areas. But that's valuable.
No, I was just wanted to agree with you because I think we have a conversation about bringing the community and PPD closer together. And so my comment is there are different parts of the community who have thoughts on what that relationship means with PPD, and all parts of the community need to hear from one another, right? And that we just don't live in a world that's equitable. And in Pasadena, we'd like to get to equity. And so I think having all of those voices heard and both sides, not just commissioners, but the community hearing from each other would be extremely important in this effort.
Also, I just want to go ahead and let you guys know that right now this is just a draft, kind of a work. And so if you guys have any other thoughts or change your mind or see there's something else after reviewing it further, if you have any other interest in any other committees, feel free to email staff and also Chair Jones as well. So that way we'll have all that. And, once we get all of your input, then we'll go ahead and work through that. So I'll most likely also send out an email for the commissioners that weren't here.
Also, from that last month or whatever, from these ad hoc committees, that we wanted to stress that we wanted to be able to, we're allowed to have community members on our ad hoc committee. And you were saying you were going to do some backs and forwards to come back, but
I can address that if you'd like, which I did. So the answer is yes, you can have community members involved. The nuance is how you do that. So under the law, if it is appointed by this board formally to have a community member on an ad hoc, that turns that ad hoc into a separate Brown Act body, just like this commission, where you'd have to have staff, posted and agendized meetings. Yeah, it would be very difficult. So the other way to approach it would be for the chair of the ad hoc to come up with a structure that would allow for community participation. It wouldn't be through a formal action of this body, but it would be something done through the head of that ad hoc committee. So that's a long way of saying I think we can come up with a solution that works, that addresses what you'd like, and we can formalize that in a way that makes sense in August.
Commissioner McFord.
I just had a question since you mentioned that Commissioner Argento and Matthews were moving off. What would we by August have 2 new commissioners? No.
They've been reappointed.
Yeah, they were.
For 3
Oh, they were
years.
reappointed. Sorry, I missed that. I missed that. Sorry. Thank you.
So
No, I missed that. I thought I saw the email that said you were, but okay. He's on my ad hoc committee. That's why I thought I saw an email saying that he was, anyway, thank you.
And for transparency, Commissioner Argento did send me preferences in no particular order, but the continuing use of force, serving on pretext stops, and serving on public engagement, objective number 3. That's no particular order. He made an emphasis on that, and he also said that he's willing to serve on more than one subcommittee if there is a need, wherever that may be. I think the only old objective that he mentioned was use of force. But as far as the new ones, he mentioned pretext stops and public engagement. But then this was sent, I think, prior to the agenda being published out. So I think he just operated under the assumption that use of force would be on this new work plan.
I think, Chair, if I could just pose the question to my fellow commissioners, I want to make sure I don't want to operate off an assumption that these 6 objectives look good, feel good to all of us to then be the basis of 6 separate work groups, right? I know that we're, smallish body. We are encouraged to participate in at least one work group, if not 2, really. But be mindful of maybe doing more than that because it's a lot of work. So yeah, I maybe want to throw that question out to you all. Do these 6 objectives feel in alignment with where we want to go? And if yes, great. But Chair, I hope you don't mind indulging
No,
me
of
just
course.
wanting to check in about that.
I'll start with myself. I mean, I definitely cannot speak for the whole commission. I think for myself, what I want to do, it does. Because these are 2 objectives that are really important to me. And I will pass it on to the rest of the commission to provide their feedback. Yeah, Commissioner Anang?
Yeah, for me, because as you know, I asked months ago for the technology. So the technology one and the number 5 is an important one. And I think the number 1 is definitely for me an important one, just to really understand the OIR report without emotion.
Yeah.
Right? And now is the year to really understand it without the emotion and the recommendations and the bigger picture of everything. So for me, that's why I've chosen this.
Thank you. Commissioner Abernathy? Yeah, Commissioner Abernathy.
Chair Banya, so you're still chair until the end of this meeting? Is that, I wanted to be clear.
I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, just want to get my title straight. Okay. All right, so I do think that 6 is a lot. Remember, that's one thing that Dr. Rosenthal was recommending as we were looking at our ad hoc groups earlier. But I mean, all of these are important, but the only thing I'd think is maybe objective 6 could be, because that's collaborating with the IPA on key objectives not covered by work groups. So instead of making that a work group, why not have them report to us as a whole on that,
Actually, I was going to make the same suggestion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think 6 probably could be satisfied by his reporting back and inquiries that we have.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point. Commissioner Ford?
And I would just say 6 could be covered by our tracking, right? So if we move into more of a visual tracking, and so we have our work plan up, 6 could be covered by that. Wouldn't necessarily have to be an ad hoc, and it could be something that he reports on monthly to the entire group. And I think number 1 is a continuation. Objective 1 is a continuation of what we had in our work group from the very beginning, from the first, and then it moved into the work group with myself and Commissioner Matthews and Argento, and now it's moving into a 3rd year. So I think that this next coming year, particularly with number 1, because it's bigger than the OIR report. So there are a lot of things from the National Police Foundation that were recommendations that have been made over time that just have not been implemented. And so it's much bigger. So I would just say for number 1, that it is much bigger than OIR, in my opinion, that it covers a lot. It's 2 years now following in a row on things that we've done.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. And with that said, Dr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Chair Bonas. Let me lower my hand. And you're absolutely right. 6 is a lot. There's no question about it. I will admit that I did put, it was my suggestion to put number 6, because what I found was there's a lot of work I'm doing, and this goes to that issue of the need for the IPA collaboration with CPOC. And I found that they're to get that input and to report out on what's going on. And I'm not in Pasadena, so the CPOC is my bridge, that's how I find out about really what are public concerns and needs. And as one of the things I've said in oversight, sometimes it's not best practice, it's best fit. So yes, I could do it where I'm reporting monthly to the commission. It would be harder when I'm working on specific projects where I can't necessarily speak publicly as to preliminary findings. That I can do with the work group. That I can have those conversations with the work group. So while I'm really, I would encourage the commission to figure out a way to reduce these if it can be done. I couldn't, and I do see a lot of value in work group number 6. So if the commission does decide no, that's too much, we'll find a workaround. But I would say there would be a lot of value in me being able to take those items I'm working on that are not the subject of other work groups and bring them to the CPOC subcommittee.
Yeah, sorry, Commissioner Anong.
I was just thinking that maybe on number 6, and just tell me if it's wrong or right. What about meeting, like you said, quarterly? That this doesn't have to be, the ad hoc group meeting, every month or every other month, but maybe quarterly, that could discuss, kind of bring everything together and say, okay, this is what's been done in these past 3 months, and have what you just said, that kind of discussion, that real deep dive discussions of what you're saying. And then that's only 4 times a year. But I think I'm getting what you're saying now, because it's the same thing that I would like to learn from number 1, right? It's just, it seems like 1 and 6, could blend together, but they cannot. But to really get to understand your work and how you want to understand how we're all thinking and the different dimensions in different spaces in Pasadena, it would be good to touch base with a few of us, but maybe it could be a quarterly thing than people feeling it's every month or every other month.
Chair Ibanez, if I can, Commissioner Nong, I was actually going to say, can we compromise it every other month?
Yeah. I mean,
not every month, not quarterly, but every other month. I think that would work. I'd be quarterly just being a little bit there's just too much work being done, and I wouldn't have that opportunity to change as I go.
Okay. Respect.
But I definitely can see, again, as we said, 6 is a lot. There's a lot to do here. But I think I could definitely, I would still see it as having a lot of value even if it was every other month as opposed to every month.
Then I'll take off myself off 1 and go to 6.
Okay.
So 6.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Vice Chair Serrano.
Thank you, Chair. In reading objective number 6, it really does feel like in many ways this is what the chair and I were doing with Dr. Rosenthal this past year that we've had you. And I think that has been very beneficial to have the chair and the vice chair be part of these conversations. And I really like the idea of widening that circle, having another 2 voices from the commission be part of that work, I think would only strengthen the feedback that you're getting, Dr. Rosenthal, and how you're moving forward with the work that you're doing and how we are preparing ourselves for having the larger conversation with the full commission. And so I just want to share that I'm fully supportive of making objective 6 a separate work group, and would agree that maybe monthly, not as necessary, but could see that every other month would be very beneficial.
And Vice Chair Serrano, if I can, I'm not sure if this was your suggestion, but it hit me as you were saying it. is perhaps on that work group, we have the chair and the vice chair and then 2 other members.
Mm.
I think that just sounds like a wonderful idea to me, at least.
Mm. Mm. Sounds good. I think we'll move forward with that. Okay. I think we've
So,
had.
excuse me, is it every other month now for 6?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess the only thing I'll say about that is, so in our, in following up on some of this, I think that every other month could be a long time for some of the things. So even in our monthly meetings that we had for ours, things were changing. We would always get an update from IPA Rosenthal. So I think maybe if we could be flexible on that, that may be as needed, because some of these things you want to move a little bit quicker so that we keep that flexible. And I know you had asked this earlier about people serving on either 1 or 2. I'm happy to serve on 2. It doesn't have to just be 1.
And if I could add to that really quickly, because again, I think one of the nice things about if we have the chair and the vice chair on that subcommittee, I meet with the chair and the vice chair every other week. So it would be a nice way we'd be able to really keep it going, even during that the 2-month period. And I do agree, obviously, there may be times where we say we need to convene the subcommittee because we've got a report coming out that needs to be, looked at or something like that.
Thank you for that suggestion, Richard. I think we've made a lot of good progress in this. Is there any formal steps we need to take in order to proceed?
No, it's going to come back anyway at your next meeting. So that was the original plan. So that's fine.
Okay. Do we have any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments.
There is one hand that's going in and out. Okay, there he is.
Mr. Maddox, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Their frustration with not knowing what's going on. I would encourage that there be reports on coming out of these committee meetings, not a year-end good saying, what a great job we've done and here's our evaluation. Let's have a regular result of the meetings, of the committee meetings. Right now it's done in a blind and we have to believe that everything is what you're all doing and there's nothing in writing about it. That's all. That's an observation. And also the hand doesn't work.
Thank you for that feedback. Who's going to tell him? Should I tell him? Okay. So just for the community to know, every month in our agenda packet, if you scroll all the way down, you'll be able to see updated objective. You'll be able to see our full work plan, and you'll be able to see updates on what each work plan has accomplished so far. So you'll be able to get that regularly tracked and regularly dated, so that there can be a continual progression of what the commission is doing leading up to the end of the fiscal year. Are there any more public comments?
There are no further public comments.
Thank you. We will now proceed to our next item, which is our upcoming agenda items and next meeting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So definitely we're going to go ahead and have a few things that we've talked about from today's meeting into next meetings. So one of them will be continuing working on the work plan, and we're going to go ahead and make the changes and edits that you guys suggested. And once again, if there is an ad hoc committee that you want to join, feel free to email us, email staff, and also Chair Jones, and let us know any other things that you may have seen or caught or changes that you need on that. And another thing that we also discussed today was the report of accomplishments for fiscal year 2022-2023. So staff will go ahead and make the edits that you guys suggested to that as well. And just want to remind you that both of these are going to be due to council by September. Okay. And other than that, we'll go ahead and bring that over. And also NACOL, if you've thought about going to the NACOL conference, which will take place, I believe the dates were from November 12th to the 16th, and it will be in Chicago, Illinois. So if you guys are fans of deep dish and getting some information, email us, let us know.
And so, Frankie, I just have to correct you because I'm from Chicago. It's Illinois.
Mm. Okay, sounds good. Do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
There are no public comments.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you all for your time. Thank you everybody for all the work that you've done. Congratulations to Chair Jones and Vice Chair Serrano. Thank you for your leadership, and we'll see you next month. Meeting adjourned.
you.